Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Concussion Nerds podcast. Today, we are joined by a dear friend of mine who, Scotty, I can't even actually remember how we connected, but I know it was on like breath work and measuring carbon dioxide in the blood and like HRV and like all the physiology stuff. So, for those listening, Dr. Scotty Butcher is who's joining us today. He has been a physical therapist for years, recently actually gave up his license and is now pursuing this path of being a psychophysiologist, of which I'm going to let him explain to you what that is. And he's truly leading the way in Canada in this concept of brain working recursive therapy. So this episode, we're going to dive into this a bit more. And I'm going to let Scotty kind of go through. He's led me through a session. It's super cool. But here's why I've asked him to be part of the virtual summit. So we've talked about how all the guests you're going to see and that I'm introducing to you are because they're amazing humans to begin with. They are leaders in what they do in their space. And they share a passion for helping people like I've never seen before. And Scotty is one of those people. And brain working recursive therapy, which I'm going to let him explain, but has a huge element in, could I say, addressing anxiety triggers, Scotty? Would that be relevant? Okay.
It's part of it, yeah.
Okay. Anxiety triggers. And again, he's going to describe it more and we're going to take him on his journey. But when we look at someone healing from persistent concussion, population number one, when we look at human beings as a whole, we all have triggers. We all have anxieties that we face. Scotty and I are on the same page that anxiety is a manifestation of the nervous system. And every single one of us can benefit from knowledge and tools to help us combat that, because when we can do that, it helps set us up for a better success for everything we want to do in life, period. So I'm so excited for you to learn more from Scotty today and on the summit, and we'll talk about more of that later. But Scotty, can you introduce yourself more to the audience so in a better way than I did? And also maybe it's a huge decision because there's clinicians listening to this and people on a healing journey listening to this. It is a huge decision to give up your license. So we don't go into detail, but can you take us a little bit through your PT journey? What's led you to be, because I know your passion around this area. Like I've never seen you so excited about something in this time frame we've been friends. Take us a bit on that journey and what's led us to today.
Yeah. That's so awesome. Thanks for the intro, Natasha. And, you talk about the guests being amazing humans. I'll tell you that I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing for you and for the summit and this if you weren't even more amazing. You put the sum of all of us together and you are greater than that sum. So I'm very happy to be doing this for you. So yeah. And again, thanks for that. Yeah, I was a physiotherapist for over 25 years. I worked clinically for a short part of that time at the beginning of my career. And then I went into research, and I was actually in academia for 17 years of that 25, where I was teaching and researching in physical therapy, and long journey with the multiple things that I won't get into, but made a shift from really being passionate about exercise training and strength training, which I still am, but, really recognizing the personal as well as the need for anxiety management. And that's where this new journey started for me. When I was still a professor, I trained in mindfulness. The reason I got into it was because it helped me with my anxiety journey. I don't really have anxiety anymore, other than sort of the normal type of anxiety that most of us are supposed to have, the kind that keeps us safe, not the kind that lies to us. And yeah, so mindfulness helped me so much that really I trained as a physio, but also as a physiologist. My PhD when I was doing research was in physiology. And so I wanted to understand why mindfulness was so powerful for me and what changed. And a lot of it was around my physiology. And so that got me thinking and researching into biofeedback and looking at heart rate variability as a marker of not only the nervous system responses, but sort of your overall autonomic health and the nervous system health, basically. And you can look at markers of, sympathetic, fight, flight, parasympathetic, rest, digest, and things like that. So it really helped. And I realized that a big part of what I changed was the way that I look at my body, and what you would call interoception, which is the ability to look inside your body and understand what's going on and feel the physiology. And it can make a big impact. So it was around that time I said, you know what, even though I'm doing this for research, I want to be able to have a bigger impact on people where I'm not married to a protocol, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to leave the university and do this privately and do where I can really connect with real individuals and knowing that I can help them through their journeys. And so I've trained as an anxiety coach and done a bunch of things since. But one of the most powerful things that I've ever come across in my entire career in physio and everything I'm doing is this technique called brain working recursive therapy, this BWRT. And it's going to be a big part of what I talk about in the symposium in both tracks, both the practitioner and the experiential track. And we're going to be doing a practical that goes into a bit of that in a group setting. So what it is it's a method of psychotherapy, although I'm not a psychotherapist, I'm a practitioner of it. It's a form of psychotherapy that really works at the level of the hindbrain. It works at the level of our most primal brain that's really responsible for our instinctive survival mechanisms. And this part of your brain, some people call it the reptilian complex or the lizard brain, or, it's really comprised of the brainstem and the cerebellum. And really what it is, some people even call it the subconscious, and that's sort of a controversial thing. But let's call it the reptilian complex for now. So the reptilian complex takes a million signals basically every minute coming from your body, coming from the environment. And it, first of all, tries to see, does it recognize these signals, right? So if it doesn't recognize it, waits for more information. If it does recognize it, it then basically makes a determination. Is it a safe response or is it an unsafe or a threat response? And so it'll code those, and then that goes to the limbic system or your amygdala primarily, but also the rest of the limbic system to then tell your nervous system and then the rest of your brain, fight, flee, freeze, or we're safe. It's okay. Now, normally this works really well, but the problem is, and this is where anxiety triggers come into this. The problem is with anxiety, we develop these habitual loops around the things that happen to us. And, my initial anxiety journey came from a concussion, came from a TBI that I had in my early 20s. And that, I was probably anxious as a kid, but that really triggered the significant responses for me. That for me recoded information, right? Because of the trauma associated with it. Some of the things that were previously safe were no longer safe. My reptilian complex then coded those as unsafe. And that happens a lot with anxiety. It even happens with, it's more than just anxiety, but it's fears and worries and things like that that come into even making basic decisions. This is why we're so comfortable being comfortable, is that to get out of our comfort zone, to learn something new or do something new, the reptilian complex looks at that and says, well, this is new information. I'm actually doing really well and I'm surviving doing what I'm doing right now. So why would I go do this other thing? Even if that other thing is something amazing for you, right? So it often steers us away from things like that. So brain working recursive therapy works with that initial reaction. And it's a very specific way that works with the nervous system that we fire up that trigger, whatever trigger it is. And again, it doesn't have to be just an anxiety trigger. There's many, many, many things that this applies to. You trigger that up in the context of the situation that you're wanting to work on. So that if it's an anxiety trigger, you bring up the anxiety trigger for only a few seconds. You fire the sympathetic nervous system at the same time. Your reptilian complex then says we purposely freeze that response so it then waits for the new information. And then we literally provide it with a new source of information that says this is safe, this is comfortable, this is okay. And then there's a bunch of process to solidify the work, but it's as simple and as quick as that. So it's an amazing, amazing therapy that was designed out of the UK 13 years ago. And it's caught fire in the UK and South Africa. It will, I guarantee it will catch fire here in North America and particularly Canada, because that is my mission right now, is to get this amazing therapy out to as many people as I can, because I know how effective it is, not only personally, but in the work that I've been doing. I'm so excited for it. So hopefully that's enough of an intro.
Yeah, I love it. And it's like I said too, like when we first connected, you had just started Stoic Tiger. So on Instagram, Scotty has 2 Instagram accounts. So you'll find the Stoic Tiger and then you'll find BWRT. So let's just pause for a second and be like, do those 2 link? What is Stoic Tiger? What is BWRT? How are these 2 accounts that I know you're passionate about? How are they serving your bigger mission of getting this therapy out?
Thank you. So BWRT Canada, which is CA, so it's bwrtcanada.ca is the Instagram handle. It's also the website. And this is my mission for getting the BWRT technique into Canada. So it's going to be one where I see clients through that, but I'm also building a network of practitioners of BWRT. And we're going to basically create an institute within Canada of not only doing work with clients, but training practitioners and things along those lines. So that's what that is. And if you go onto my BWRT site, that's where you can book in sessions and see more information and all that. So that's the BWRT site. The Stoic Tiger is more of my coaching program, which I obviously, because I'm so passionate about BWRT, I incorporate that into my coaching program. But my coaching program is for individuals that are struggling with their nervous system, and it encompasses the other work that I do as a psychophysiologist, which is heart rate variability, biofeedback, mindset, growth mindset work, but then also BWRT. And it's very individualized to people coming in, where they get an individual program that's based on what they're wanting to get out of it. And obviously BWRT is a big part of it, but I also do the training program, which I call the mind gym. It's like, heart rate variability biofeedback is like training the mind. It's like going to the gym for the mind. So the Stoic Tiger work coaching program does the mind gym. We also get rid of a lot of the limitations and triggers that they have with BWRT, and lots of different protocols that we bring into that. And yeah, that's really the main difference. So I mean, either one, the Stoic Tiger or BWRT Canada.ca, you can get a hold of me. Each has slightly different information, but I do cross collaborate quite often.
That makes sense. So we've dropped this term psychophysiologist a couple times. And when you first said to me, like, so this is what I do, like, I'm a psycho, I'm pretty sure I looked at you and I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
So
it's not psychophysiologist. I'm a psychophysiologist. I'm a physiologist, but yeah. Sorry, I'm preempting what you're saying.
I love it. But can you give us some insight into, like, what does that mean? Because it's a cool title, by the way. I love it. But what is it?
Yeah, it's honestly, you basically can think of it as the applied science of the mind-body connection. And it's using physiology to impact psychology, using psychology to impact physiology. So it's the cross-reference there. And that's why with the physiological work that I do with heart rate variability, and the biofeedback is about making heart rate variability the sort of optimal that we can at any given point in time, and particularly while we're training it, to impact our emotional health, to impact our emotional, psychological, and our brain health. And then BWRT fits in as well, because it goes back and forth as well, because you use psychological techniques to impact the nervous system response, and then the nervous system response impacts your emotional reaction. So it's really just, it's a fancy term of saying, we're really doing mind-body care or mind-body work and connection care, but it really is from a scientific and a data-driven perspective, rather than, there's a lot of really good information out there and a lot of really good practices out there, but not a lot of them are very scientific, unfortunately. So this is really just emphasizing the fact that this is data-driven, and it's, evidence-based. It's also very much individual to the client.
I love it. You and I have had this discussion before too. So there's this big push on social media right now. Everywhere you churn, I feel like people are talking about the power of nervous system regulation. And it's really funny. I scrolled back on my social media because I was like, I feel like I've been talking about this for a really long time before it like blew up as the buzzword thing. And I know you feel the same way. And I actually like scrolled back in my Instagram just to see. The very first reel I made about nervous system regulation and regulating your nervous system for health and showing up and being the person you want to be, at this point would have been about 3.5 years ago.
Wow. You spent a lot of time doing that. Holy.
Right?
Even just to try and find that.
Oh, well, it's benefit to me / maybe not the smartest social media strategies. I don't film reels regularly. So I was like literally like scrolling back, and I was like, because now everywhere you turn, it's there. But 3.5 years ago was when I started talking about the power of regulating the nervous system for health and healing and performance too, right? But the other thing now, so nervous system regulation, huge buzz phrase, huge, great, huge buzz phrase. The other thing that seems to be coming along with this is how we need to be in safety and we need to be in parasympathetic, and how the sympathetic is bad and all these pieces. And I loved what you said. I'm coming back to something you said at the very beginning, because we need all of the elements of our nervous system to function.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There is no bad nervous system.
Yeah.
The challenge and the issue becomes when I always say we lose our dynamic nature or our flexibility to shift
Beautiful.
between our systems. And you made a comment at the very beginning, and I don't even know if you realized you made it. You're like the good anxiety versus the bad anxiety. So I would love for you to go a little bit deeper into that and what you mean by good anxiety, because people think anxiety and they think bad.
Yeah.
So what is good anxiety versus the bad anxiety? And if you can relate it
Awesome.
back to, yeah.
Yeah, totally. No, it's a great question. And when I'm speaking passionately, I sometimes bring out words like good and bad. And I didn't really mean
Yeah,
bad. It's just that
I do
there's
it all the time. You're good.
appropriate. Let's
You
say the anxiety that
sandpaper this
lies to you.
question beautifully.
Right. So, yeah, it's a good thing. So just piggybacking on your talk about sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, yes, you're right. The nervous system regulation crowd or movement is about calm, right? It's about becoming more calm. And that's good because most of us are needing to do that. And that's not a problem. But the problem comes when we start thinking, well, we never want to be in fight or flight, or we never want to be in sympathetic. Man, if we never were in sympathetic, we would get nothing done. We wouldn't have the drive to do the things that we're doing. Like I'm in sympathetic right now, but it's a regulated sympathetic, right? I'm excited, but I'm not like freaking out, right? But if I was freaking out before this podcast, for example, I could do some things to help regulate myself so that I can be in a more productive sympathetic manner. If you follow Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory, it would be safe mobilization is what he would call it. It's sort of the combination of the sympathetic fight or flight with the part of the parasympathetic system, the ventral vagal system that is engaged as well. So good anxiety versus not good anxiety. Good anxiety is that it's the anxiety, the anticipation that you have for something coming up that you want to be engaged for. So you might be studying for a test, for example, or you might be, like people get test anxiety. And then test anxiety to give you enough motivation to study well, but you still feel like you're under control, but you're worried about it a bit, right? Because it's important to you. That's good anxiety. That's the anxiety we want. That's the anxiety that we want to have because it preps us for the things coming up. Where it can go wrong in the bad anxiety or the anxiety that lies to you, the anxiety that lies to you is the anxiety that is about things, the worry and the fear that comes from things that, it's almost like thinking about all of the things that could go wrong and having anxiety. Well, it might do this and it might do that, or I'm worried that I can't do this, or I'm worried about this, and it becomes unregulated. So it's sort of an uncontrolled sympathetic nervous system, if you want to look at it that way, or unregulated. So it's sympathetic, it's fight or flight, but people don't have the ability to be adaptable, as you've said, to be able to come down as needed and be able to engage appropriately. And they get stuck in this sympathetic or hyper-vigilance, I'll call it sometimes with some people, where it's just constantly, it's like a deer or an antelope going through, the Sahara or Serengeti or whatever, and there's all these predators around, and it's doing one of these as it's going through there, right? Because it has to be aware of all of these tigers or lions that are going to attack it, right? But we're not an antelope going through the Serengeti. What we are is we are humans that are looking at, oh my God, finances, oh my God, relationships, oh my God, work, oh my God, like all these things that we're doing this in this hyper-vigilant when we don't need to be. It's just that our society has trained us to move into that and to look at that and interpret that as safety because we're surviving it. Even though it's not good, we're surviving it. So our reptilian complex tells us, okay, well, you're surviving it. So this must be good. So we're going to repeat this anxiety loop. And that's what keeps happening. And it turns into a habit, right? Not that anxiety is purely a habit, it's a reaction, but you develop habits around that. And so a lot of the work about nervous system regulation is about teaching your body and your mind what is really safe, and it's okay to come down out of sympathetic, and it's okay to go back in when needed, when you need to sprint across the street or lift a heavy weight or have the anxiety about something important coming up, right? That's good anxiety. So hopefully that makes sense to all of the listeners, not just those that are educated.
Well, and I think too, the other way I love to loop this in when we're like experiencing that good sympathetic, whatever, too, is in this concept of building resiliency, right? If we just sat in our little comfort circle or our little like comfort bubble every day and we never challenged and we never felt those butterflies, or we never like pushed ourselves into that element within a controlled amount, we would never be able to grow our capacity, right? And so
Exactly.
I think too, and when I relate this back to concussion stuff too, specifically, it's how hard we push our clients, right? So when we push our clients past, we elicit symptoms, I always say in our like 1 to 2 point ratio of feeling it, like that's challenge zone. That's the like, we're pushing just beyond where our capacity is. If we ignore that and we blast through it, we're going to push into overwhelm. We're going to push into dysregulation. We're going to push into this place that's not the constructive or beneficial sympathetic presence. But if we challenge ourselves that little bit, like you're talking about too, and we're in this space, that allows us to grow our capacity, build our resilience for other things when they do happen down the road. Would you agree?
Totally. 100%. Yeah. Resilience is actually the piece that went for me looking at things from mindfulness and also professionally understanding. People coming out of exercise training programs were talking about resilience. And I really wanted to understand that, even though they weren't using those words. Absolutely. This is all about resilience, and this is one quote that I heard. I can't remember who said it, but a resilient nervous system is a reactive nervous system, one that doesn't have a sticky brake or a sticky gas pedal. It's one that works the way it's supposed to work and moves up and down as appropriate.
I like that. I initially didn't, and then I liked it because it was like reactive, but I liked it better when you finished the quote. I love this. Like I said before, like just knowing you from when you started Stoic Tiger and we're doing the heart rate variability stuff and the like carbon dioxide stuff, to like seeing you dive into the work you're doing now with the BWRT, like you've always been passionate about this element. It went to a whole new freaking level when you started doing this.
That's how it feels too. So
yeah, and I'm just so excited for you to, I mean, I know I can relate and understand how it feels to have a mission that's so dear to your heart that you just want to like blast out to change the world, really. And so I have so much respect for that and you, because I get that. I get it so much.
you totally do. I know you do, because that's how you do your work. That's like I said at the beginning, that's why I'm here.
So I'm so stoked for you guys all to learn more about this. So Dr. Scotty, he was so passionate. We had a conversation and we're like, we could do this and this and this. So here's how much Dr. Scotty you're going to get in the summit. He is presenting to both the clinician track and the healing journey track individually as a speaker. Okay. So whether you are doing the free pass to the summit or the VIP pass, you get that. However, we then felt like we can talk about BWRT till the cows come home, but the magic really comes when you experience it. And so what we are also doing is, if you are a VIP pass holder, Dr. Scotty will be teaching a live workshop where we will, in all our live workshops, we're coming together as one united force as both people on a healing journey and clinicians. And Dr. Scotty will be teaching a live workshop on the Sunday, leading us through a BWRT actual session. So I'm so excited for you to bring this to the summit and share this with our community and all the awesomeness.
It's so good. I'm so excited. So sign up for the VIP because it's going to be on point. And, honestly, the way that we can talk about all this stuff till the cows come home, but you know what? It's experiencing it for yourself that makes all the difference. So please, it's going to be worth it.
Yay. Scotty, thank you so much for being here today. As always, you are a gem, and I love working with you and chatting with you. To those listening, go follow him on Instagram, below the show notes. Join the summit. Get to experience more of what he's talking about. It's going to be worth it, I promise. And until next week, my friends, have a lovely day. That's today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, give us a like, give us a share, give us a tag on Instagram, and please never hesitate to reach out. We love communicating and connecting with you. Until next week, my friends, have a marvelous day.